what I really want to talk about today, is the Liberals' strategy and the Liberals' plan to sell us back to the capitalist death cult. That to me is the core of what is happening in Canada today. This fellow here, his name's Russell Matthews. He has a really great clip that gives you the tone of Chrystia Freeland, Nazi collaborator Chrystia Freeland, of course. So yeah, and it'll kick into the This is an interview that she gave a couple of days ago on a podcast, and they asked her straight up about the CRB and the plans that the Liberals have for the CRB.
Last question for you. A lot of the emergency relief programs are supposed to end next week. That includes the wage and rent subsidies and the Canada Recovery Benefit. Do you see any of them continuing past this October 23rd deadline with the fourth wave still on us?
That is a very good and timely question, Chris. And you're right, the fourth wave is still here. You're right that some restrictions are still in place, but it's also the case that the economy is recovering strongly. I was very happy about last week's job numbers, and it is the case that we are reopening. So this is a different phase from the phase we were in when those programs were put in place, and we're working now on what's appropriate for the conditions today.
I think you're telling me I have to wait.
I'm afraid so, but we're working on it very hard. I have a stack of papers in front of me about precisely this issue.
So essentially you get the tone, right, from Chrystia Freeland, that the tone of what she's saying and everything is we are going to be eliminating these benefits, as I've been calling it all along, right? I've been saying from the very beginning that the Liberal strategy is to divide and conquer the issue, is to separate people away from to separate the CRB and the CERB and the CSB and the CWB and all these things into their own little different pockets, and then steadily decline them, right? So that the negative impacts that occur in the society won't be felt as like one big chunk. It'll be a trickle out, right? So our homeless numbers will go up, but it won't be like 1 month suddenly, right? It'll be like a steady trickle out of homeless, and then we'll end up in the same situation that the Americans are in. Because that's the goal of the capitalist death cult, and it's the goal of Nazi collaborator Chrystia Freeland, right? And this leads to an article that I've found here from BNN Bloomberg. Feds letting aid expire, replacing with programs for hardest hit. More than a year and a half since the onset of the pandemic, the federal government is pivoting its approach to support individuals and businesses that continue to be financially hobbled by COVID-19 and the resulting public health restrictions. After the Canada Recovery Benefit expires on October 23rd, it will be replaced by a targeted benefit that will help those whose work is impacted by COVID-19 lockdowns, the government announced Thursday. At a news conference, Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland announced that the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit will go into effect on October 24th. The benefit will provide $300 a week to workers who are subject to a lockdown. So it looks to me as though they're just going to be implementing a means test into this, that instead of it being a universal program that actually just comes into effect as people need it or require it, they're going to jam a means test into it, and they're also reducing the benefit, that which is always the strategy, right? Steadily lower the benefit, steadily get rid of it, steadily shunt it away, right? Steadily sell us back into the capitalist death cult. Freeland said the government is taking out insurance by creating the new support program in the event of local lockdowns in the future, and that those who are affected by those lockdowns would be able to tap the subsidy program up to the maximum amount for the duration of the lockdown. So they're also looking to tie this in to business, right? That you only get support if the capitalist death cult gives you permission. That's the strategy of the Liberals moving forward, is to continue the strategy of abandonment, right, which we've seen effectively done throughout the United States, to pull back benefits, to claw back these things, while simultaneously having absolutely no interest in moving forward on a basic income, even though like 77% of their own voters support it, even though it's an incredibly popular and, in my view, necessary policy to actually move people forward. On a personal note, right, these sorts of clawbacks are going to result in me not being able to pay my rent, right? Very, very, very straightforwardly. The idea that, oh, well, just go get a job is a complete farce, right? We are being grifted as a people. I've got a great article here that actually talks explicitly about this. Here, a worker in Florida applied to 60 entry-level jobs in September and got one interview, right? That the reality is that corporations are not actually hiring. Big business is not actually hiring. That their strategy is now the Amazon strategy of burn out your workforce. Only replace your workforce after they're so burnt out that they can no longer participate. That's the strategy. So they're not actually hiring. So that this, oh, nobody wants to work, that's why service is so bad, because nobody wants to work, right? It's a grift that's being perpetrated against the public so that the public won't revolt against these businesses whose strategy is to burn out the workforce. That's their stated agenda at this stage. And so if you're walking around saying just get a job, then you're being duped, right? You don't need to participate in that. You can simply say, "Oh, I'm not going to be a dupe. I'm going to actually say to these multi-billion-dollar corporations, all of whom have made incredible amounts of wealth throughout this pandemic, right? That throughout the pandemic, the billionaire class has made incredible gains. Here's a great visual to see exactly what we're talking about, right? Net worth growth during the pandemic, top 20 billionaires. So the blue here is October 2021, what they had in March 2020, right? This is all 20 of them combined. So the blue you're seeing here is the wealth that they made during the pandemic. And here's the breakdown. You can see someone like Elon Musk, for example, made a gobsmacking amount of money. Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Larry Ellison, Larry Page, right? And so the idea that we don't have the wealth to actually create support systems for the populace is a complete and total joke. It's just that the wealth has siphoned away into the hands of these worthless billionaires who don't participate and don't do anything reasonable, right? And you're starting to see this manifest in meaningful ways here in Canada. Rural Canada's visible homelessness problem driven by pandemic, high cost of housing. We're seeing more tent encampments pop up, says manager with Communities Ending Poverty. And it's for a very simple reason, right? These companies are not actually hiring, right? There aren't actually jobs out there for people. The jobs numbers that Nazi collaborator Chrystia Freeland was talking about are literally like part-time jobs, like literally people getting like 10 hours a week in like little odd job sort of things and all of this kind of stuff. They're not full-time jobs with benefits. They're not actually hiring people in any kind of permanent way. That the upper class, the billionaire class, the psychopath class is using this as an opportunity to decimate their workforces, and are using it as an opportunity to ensure they don't need to pay benefits and don't need to provide anything worthwhile. Not that the liberals are actually going to tell you this, or that they are interested in this. This is what's embarrassing about the people who are still voting liberal and who still think that the Liberal Party are actually interested in helping in any kind of meaningful way, is that it's not going to be until they themselves are laid off. It's not going to be until they themselves are ejected from the system. It's not going to be until they themselves actually experience the betrayal and abandonment that the liberals have planned for the populace, that they're actually going to wake up and recognize that these liberals have no interest in creating a stable society, right? Like no interest whatsoever, 0%. The liberals are interested in convincing you that they're interested. That's all they're interested in doing. And if you fall for this, right, at this stage in the game, you're completely gullible. And what is going to happen is that you're going to have an entire group of people. Like the reason why rural Canada's visible homelessness, the reason why the homelessness is visible in rural Canada is because we take police in the cities and we beat the shit out of homeless people and we chase them out of the cities, right? So they can't be here. That's why if you see homelessness here, they're actually like entrenched into the city. Most of our homeless get chased into more rural territories. That's why it's more visible in rural areas. And people are starting to be able to cobble together little sums of cash here and there. Most of the one-bedroom units listed are $1,300 to $1,600, right? Like, that's the average. The rent is too damn high. And Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau are doing everything they can to diminish these benefits, to make things worse for people while pretending as though they're interested in something else. And you're actually seeing the capitalist death cult report on this in ways that can only be described as hysterical, right? So this is from the Toronto Sun for my American viewers. The Toronto Sun is further to the right than the National Post, right? It is really a rag, and you'll see it here. Many Canadians ready to pull plug on CRB, right? 9 in 10 identify rising cost of living as greater concern than job or income security. And of course, you read the article, and they refer to an Angus Reid Institute poll, and they quote that the poll found 41% of Canadians want the support programs to end. Oh, okay, 41%. That means that 59 want them to continue. So, alternative headline, right? Majority of Canadians want support systems to continue. Are they continuing? No. No. The CRB is getting phased out and being replaced with this Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit, which I almost guarantee will tie supports to employment and be a means-tested program in order to throw more people out onto the streets. This is despicable. It's disgusting, and it's going to get more obvious as time moves forward. As homelessness begins to spike, as more and more jobs are unavailable, as more and more people are having to, and even if these places were hiring, which they are actually not, but even if they actually were hiring, they're not paying a wage that is suitable to allow people to live in the area in the first place, right? So no one can actually pay the extraordinary rent for the shitty wage that's being paid so that they can live in the area in the first place. What we need is obviously a decline in rent, that the rents need to go down 100%, or the wages need to go up 100%. Like we're living in this period of time where we can sort of pretend as though we can just continue doing this, and we can't. We can't. Like, we can't continue doing this. We can't continue doing this. And the idea that we can is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous and obscene. Stop voting Conservative and Liberal. Like, stop voting Conservative and Liberal. It's very straightforward. It's very straightforward. Like, stop voting Conservative and Liberal. I don't know what needs to be said any longer, right? I don't know what needs to be said any longer. The capitalist death cult has no credibility. We live in a wage slave system. We are wage slaves tied to a capitalist death cult, which is explicitly benefiting from our labor while they do nothing at all. Nothing whatsoever. And the idea that we can just continue acting as we always have is insanity, right? It's insanity. Like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And the people who are saying, like, oh, well, people will just be lazy and sit around and or they'll just play video games or all this kind of stuff. I'm getting to the point where I'm saying, good. We need people to stay home. We're in the middle of a climate change catastrophe. Always remember, Lytton burnt down. Always remember that Lytton burned down, right? Always remember this. What's it going to take? Is it going to take Kamloops burning down next, right? Find a little community right around you. Do you need to watch that place burn down before you're willing to recognize and realize that we need to stop this madness? That we need to erect support systems so that as we dismantle the system that's responsible for destroying us, we'll be safe, right? The liberals aren't interested in that. That's the reason they couldn't get their majority. The reason they couldn't get their majority is because we don't trust them. And everything they're doing now shows us why we shouldn't, right? We need to get rid of these guys. And if you're still voting conservative and if you're still voting liberal, well, you know what you would have been doing if you had been ruled by the Nazis then. And because even the Nazis didn't try to destroy all human life. Like, it's disgraceful. We're a disgraceful people. We're a disgraceful people. And we won't be forgiven for what we've done. There's not going to be an ounce of forgiveness from our children. We will be considered barbaric and evil, as the Nazis are. Well, if you've made it to this point, like, share, subscribe the video, guys. I know, this is happy content that I'm releasing, isn't it? If you want to actually support a leftist voice and support somebody who's actually putting forward protest movements, incidentally, November 7th, 2 p.m., 6 Tetton Hall Road, Doug Ford's house. Come to Doug Ford's house and protest, because he's part of the problem in big, significant ways. And if you want to support people who are actually doing those kinds of actions, my Patreon is down below. Please consider supporting. Thanks, guys. Good luck. We're going to need it.